Record. Yes, it's recording.
So
All
you'll
right.
send us a recording?
Well, it will be put on the website and then
Oh.
you can access it there.
Thanks. Good.
So welcome to the Breakout group. Today is May 3rd, and we have two speakers, Deb Weiner and Christine Robinson. And let me check the agenda and see who's supposed to go first. Christine, looks like you're up first. New beginnings. And Maureen, this is the first speech in the level 1. Is that correct?
You're asking for Christine?
Yes, Christine. Is this the first speech in level 1? Is that what this is, New Beginnings?
Oh, for me, yeah, yes, that's right. It's not an icebreaker. It's the first.
Right.
I guess that would be the second speech.
And
okay, so I'm going to, Maureen, I'm going to send you Christine's evaluation form.
Thank you.
And again, this is not memorized. So if you're evaluating me to memorize, F-, okay?
No, actually, I highly recommend not memorizing. I used to memorize my speeches and it actually makes it a little stilted. So I recommend that it flow.
This is the unstilted.
So Maureen, do you have the evaluation yet?
Where's the chat?
No, I didn't send it in the chat. I can't send it in the chat. I sent it by email. Whoops, maybe it didn't go. Maureen, it didn't go to you. I must have spelled your...
Did you spell it M-A-U-R-E-E-N?
No, I didn't.
It's M-A-U-R-I-N-E?
I-N-E.
M-A-U-R-I-N-E, yes. EXAVUER@gmail.com. Is that correct?
A-V-I-E-R?
Say it again.
M-A-U-R-I-N-E-X-A-V-I-E-R.
I-E-R instead of, okay, let me try that again. Sorry, guys. Here we go. I have it here. Whoops, now let me get the email, the evaluation. Let's see if that, whoops, it wants a subject.
And Christine, would you mind giving me your email so after I finish it, I can email it back to you?
Okay, and I'm sorry, you would like it emailed or would you like it in the chat?
You can just put it in, if it's okay with other people to see it, you can just put it in the chat.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine with me. Sure.
Okay. So Maureen, when you are ready, we can go ahead and start.
I have the evaluation form. I can do it afterwards. This is presentation skills mastery, right? That's the.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Perfect. I can introduce her and then I'll do that later. Okay.
So go ahead when you're ready.
Okay.
This spring.
Wait, I think Maureen wants to introduce you.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
Christine Robinson, New Beginnings, Christine Robinson. This is her level 1, speech 1, presentation skills, and her speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Christine Robinson, New Beginnings, Christine Robinson.
This spring, I started transplanting one of my plants out of its tiny cupcake-sized container into a larger, more luxurious condominium-type container. The plant in the cupcake pot was doing fine, but I could see with its wispy appearance, this little guy was ready for a new home. But darned if that little plant wouldn't budge when time came to move. Oh, how its tiny foot roots clung to the sides of its cupcake land. Didn't matter how much more spacious, this plant did not want to move. And no matter how much it needed to let go and move on, the plant was not willing to change. Sound familiar? Finally, with a good strong tug, the plant released its hold on the porcelain and allowed me to plunk it down into the warm, awaiting soft soil. At first, the little plant was rigid with fear, eyes tight shut, if it had eyes, and leaves at the side. The plant was leery of what was going to happen next. What horror lies beyond now? The little plant wondered. Eventually, as time rolled along, the little plant let go enough to stretch out a bit and relax, enjoying the inviting soil beneath its little root toes. It let go and let God. And that, ladies and gentlemen, and Madam Toastmaster, is the story of you and me, the story of us. All during this pandemic, we've been living in our little cupcake hideaways, haven't we? Living and breathing and getting along like the little plant did. Now, we are poking up our collective heads through the loam of our lives. We have grown, we have changed, and we are not the same. We ask ourselves, how will I return to work? What about the education for my kids? How about healthcare? How will I fit in? Our circumstances may include inconvenient and even tragic events. And yet, through our connection and communion with one another, each of us makes a small difference toward a new and better world. To restore something takes a lot longer than make something brand new. To restore a car takes longer than buying a new one, right? I think of the eagle as tonight's metaphor. As the eagle ages, its feathers no longer take him as high nor as fast, and he may die. So the eagle flies deep into the mountains and finds a den or a cave. And while inside, he plucks out the feathers that no longer work. In fact, he takes out all his feathers and he bashes his claws and his beak against the rocks and destroys himself into a bloody, beat up mess. Then he waits and he waits and he waits until his feathers are new grown. The beak and the talons are restored to their former ferocity. Eventually, the eagle emerges flying higher and stronger than ever. He is restored. He is reborn. We are like that eagle. We have been beaten and bludgeoned and lost our ability to fly and driven right into our caves. And like the eagles, we waited for our restoration. Tonight, we begin to emerge, not the same, but flying stronger, higher, and freer than ever before, saved by grace one more time. In the Bible, metaphors for restoration and eagles abound. And when something is restored, always it returns better than it was at the outset. Like the story of Job, restoration brought back twice what was lost. Demolishment and resurrection, symbolic of walking on this earth, trying and failing and coming into the world yet again. Christ consciousness is about surrendering to the pain. We are ragged and we are blessed. My personal eagle story was a year of trips to the hospital with hip and foot surgeries, a breaking down of my entire right leg, and only recently walking without a cane. I knew right down to my little eaglet toenails I would never walk this world as before. I could never stand as I had before. My claw print had altered, and now I see for the better. Because while breaking apart in my little eagle cave, I found myself writing a book. Out of pain and boredom and loneliness came a 150-page book called Confidently Speaking. God took away my flight long enough to settle down and do his work, not mine. And the best part is this book arrived on my 30-year sobriety birthday. 30 years since my last drink, and along comes this gift of sobriety and of God. Not the drunk I was 30 years ago, unable to articulate a single sentence. Today, confidently speaking, like the name of my book. Today, an award-winning author and speaker, ready to fly high and free. More than a transition, a transformation. The French philosopher and Jesuit priest Teilhard de Chardin said this: "We are all one, you and I. Together we suffer, together we exist. Together and forever we recreate each other." Let us move forth fearlessly, extending hearts and hands and feathers to encourage our fellow travelers in need, to tend to one another. And even with our masks on, we can look into the eyes of the other and remind them of the great golden spirit within. No matter the color, no matter the shape, the great golden eagle we rescue is in truth our own. Madam Toastmaster.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christine. That was fabulous. Okay, so we're going to give Maureen a minute to write down her notes, and then we're going to move on to the next speaker. And that's a minute. Okay, so the next, Claudia, would you be willing to introduce Deborah Wiener and her speech?
Good afternoon, everybody. Now we're going to have Deb Wiener with her speech, which the purpose of her speech is connecting to the audience to inspire. And she's doing level 3, and her speech will be from 5 to 7 minutes. So please, a big applause to Deb.
Hi, everyone. Child sex trafficking is real. It exists in every state and every country. It may even be happening in your own neighborhood. It happens in many families also. When a child's innocence is taken from them, it is a tragedy. When I was a child, if just one person had believed me, my life would have been dramatically different. I remember telling my mother. I told the nuns. And as a result, I was shunned, beaten, had my mouth washed out with soap. I learned not to say anything, that there was no one that was going to help me, that the result was only violent. So I just learned to shut down, be quiet, keep it to myself. I was recently asked by someone, what would a child do to help themselves if they were being molested? My answer, as I was saying, was I realized it was futile. There's nothing a child can do except what I did. You can learn to disassociate, to be able to bear the pain and wait for your opportunity to escape. When you're an infant and 1 and 2 and 3 years old, there's nothing you can do. You can't even speak. So what would you do? And I'm here to talk about child sex trafficking because I want to make people aware that it still exists and to be able to possibly help someone, to help a child. It happens to males as well as females, and it happens from males as well as females. And in my case, it started in infanthood. It happens when there is, in many cases, different scenarios, a dysfunctional, abusive, and greedy family. And there's 4 types of child sex trafficking. There's the pimp controlled, when a child is trafficked by an unrelated individual, male or female, who often develops an intentional relationship with the child, which is later used as a leverage in the exploitation. Or it's gang or mafia controlled. In my case, it was Italian mafia controlled. The child is trafficked by a member of the gang or mafia and trafficked by the gang or mafia itself or a member of it. There's the familial trafficking. A child is trafficked by a relative or a person who is perceived by the child to be a family member, such as an individual is referred to as auntie or uncle, grandpa or grandma, step parent or step grandparent, but they're not directly related to the child. And then there's the buyer or perpetrated trafficking. A child is being trafficked but does not have an identified trafficker. Instead, the buyer is directly exploiting the child's vulnerability by offering money, food. Usually it's food or shelter because the money is given to the perpetrator in exchange for sexual exploitation. Child sex trafficking has devastating immediately and long-term consequences and effects, including health impacts, psychological and physical trauma, and sometimes, and in many cases, even death. There's always a threat to the child, and there's conditioning and programming, and that's why they don't leave, because they're either protecting themselves or someone else, and there's a threat of death. It happens mostly in lineages, in families, and it goes on for generations and generations. When I was a child, I endured severe physical, mental, emotional, and sexual and verbal trauma. And it went on from infanthood until 18 years old. There was no one to help me, and I learned to disassociate, to endure the pain that I knew was coming. Because of all of these experiences in my life, I feel like I have my badge of honor. And because of the experiences, I do not consider myself a victim. And I take those experiences as a thank you that I am a most resilient and strong individual. And I am using these experiences to talk about these experiences so I can help other people, so I can inspire them to know that if I can get through these things, anyone can. There's many things I can't talk about in this speech that I will write a book about someday, the details of it. But if this badge of honor I carry, I know I came into this world to make a difference. And I know I came into this world to create a change in the world and to heal my lineage on both sides, the mother and father side, because it has been a pattern way too long. And I am here to do that. And I know that I survived, because there is no one who can survive the abortion pill. When I was in utero, my identical twin sister died and left, but I survived. Who survives the abortion pill? And then there was so many other complications. I mean, it's so apparent that I'm here to create a change. Then the cord was wrapped around my head and I still survived, and on and on and on. I mean, there's so many examples, but it's not about my experiences in general that I want to talk about. It's mostly about the resilience, and the reason that I survived is to tell you all that this is happening here every day. I just heard that there was a huge ship that was just discovered. I'm not sure, I don't listen to the news anymore, but I just heard through someone that there was a huge ship just discovered a few weeks ago with children that were trafficked that were being brought from Honduras to be child sex slaves. This has just happened, and thankfully they were discovered. Now, what will happen to those children? Will they be taken back to Honduras, or I don't know? But they were caught and they were saved. Thank God, and thank God for those children. A lot of times when these things are happening, people are asked, "Well, why didn't they run away, or why didn't they tell someone?" Well, I told my mother, I told my grandmother, I told the nuns, and again, every time I was severely violated and abused. So I learned to just be quiet. We didn't talk about it in my family, because as long as no one else is being bothered, why should they be bothered? I was the scapegoat, so that's okay. I was the product of a mother and who was divorced from, and I was an unwanted child. So in most families, there is a scapegoat, and then there's the golden child, and then there's the other children. And children's experiences and siblings' experiences, if you'll ever interview or talk to them, they're all different. One child would say, "Oh, I had a wonderful life," and then they talk to another child, and like me, and you talk about your experiences, and they say, "She's a liar. That didn't happen," because it didn't happen to them. You see, it happened to one child. Victims of child abuse are threatened not to tell. I lived my whole life in fight or flight, freeze, fawn mode. My nervous system was on all the time, looking for the next blow, the next threat, and brought up by very selfish, you could say narcissistic people. So I thought that was normal, which was in my energy field and which attracted more of that my whole life, not understanding, oh, these people seem so familiar, because that's all I knew. And I would attract more and more and more of that until my intuition came back, that I had left long ago and turned the off switch on too. The on switch turned on eventually when I decided and I planned my escape when I was 17 years old. When I was 12 years old, I'll go back a little bit. my stepfather came home and said, "Oh, your mother just died. She made me promise to let you live here as long as you do what I say." At that moment, my intuition kicked back on because I knew at that point my freedom was gone. I was not free. I was a slave. And I was going to do whatever I needed to do to stay there with my siblings until I could leave. Age 17, I planned my escape. I saved enough money for the first quarter of college. I had a friend whose father was going to pick us up and drive us to college. And I would never have been able to leave that house unless there was someone else standing at the door, because you see, my stepfather was going to lose his maid, his slave. And then who was going to take care of his children?
Deborah, can you start to wrap up?
Yes,
We're
I can.
about at 11 minutes now.
Yes. I am here to say that please, if anyone around you appears to need some help, if there's a child or a family that you can see that there might be some dysfunction or that someone needs help, please be conscious and aware, and maybe call your local police, or there's some hotlines to call that you could possibly report them to. Most likely, I would not even call social services because they're not really trained to understand that kind of thing that's going on. But I'm also here to say that I am now here based on everything I came through, and I am Deb Weiner. I'm a radiant, luminous light being. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a feng shui master. I'm a shaman. I'm a business owner. I'm a mother of 4. I've been married for 33 years, and I am here to enlighten you and to hopefully inspire people to be aware and conscious to please help a child, because no child should be not believed and left behind.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. And we're going to give Claudia a minute of time to finish her evaluation. Okay, that's a minute. And what I'd like to do now is to call Maureen to give her evaluation of Christine. And yes, that's right. And I will go ahead and time. And the evaluation time is 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, Maureen.
Christine, what a pleasure it was to be on that journey with you. The way you used hand gestures and facial gestures and research and experience and vivid descriptions of what it was like for the plant. I could literally feel what it was like to be with the plant. I could imagine what it was like to be the plant. And the way you described, again, in excruciating detail about the eagle. Wow, it was inspiring. It drew me in. I felt the power that you had when you were just, I felt the power you had and the eagle had when it was breaking free. I was inspired to hear about you with your journey and the fact that you've written a book and how you turned that time with your foot into transformation. Some of the things that you could improve on would be the connection with the audience through the entirety of the speech. I definitely felt your connection, and I also felt your connection come and go a little bit. You could have some breaths in between the topics. Mostly near the end, it felt a little bit like there was a lot of information coming, and I noticed myself being a little bit overwhelmed when it came to the Jardine story. So whether you continue to have it or not is totally up to you. I noticed that I was at the point of I was in digest. I already had so much, I was full. One challenge I would give you would be to clarify for me, was when it was the period you had with your foot and writing the book, was that during COVID or was that in another time? And I would love to know myself. So if the answer is yes, then that explains it there. I found myself wondering what the experience of COVID was like for you. That could be another stretch to have it be more clear and understanding for me as the recipient of what COVID was really like for you. Thank you again for being an inspiring speaker, an amazing use of information, powerful and connecting to me, Madam Toastmaster.
Maureen, thank you very much. All right. Very good. And Claudia, are you ready to give your evaluation, speech evaluation now?
Yes.
All right. So again, it's 2 to 3 minutes. Hold on, I'm going to set my watch again. And you may begin.
Thank you, Madam. Deb, what an inspirational speech. You definitely connected with the audience. That was the purpose of your speech. And at the beginning, what I was most impressed with, how you went through describing your story. That first one, I have to say, I felt connected with every single word you said. In fact, when you describe, for example, my mouth was washed with soap, I was bitten, and I wouldn't say anything. That was very powerful, and that's how you started your speech, and that's how you engaged me, and I'm pretty sure the rest of the audience as well. Later on, I also noticed something that you did great with your speech was that you also gave the 4 different types of sexual trafficking. You even mentioned the names and explained them, such as it's coming from a pimp, from a mafia, from a family member, or a perpetrator. So that was very good for us to understand better the topic. Another amazing thing that you did through your speech was speaking about how that changed you, but how you don't just want to be a victim. That's how you said you want to be the strong woman, the one who's going to change out there, open the eyes of many people, because sometimes we don't see what's happening. We don't know those stories. So I want to thank you for that, because that opens our eyes and our minds. And yes, we have to be out there and just be aware that this can be happening, like you said, in our neighborhood, with our family members. So that made me be aware of that. And thank you for that and opening my eyes. Lastly, I will say that something that will make better your speech. It might be maybe organization. I would think maybe just start with your story, explain what happened from beginning to end, and then explain the types of the victims. No, sorry, not victims. Explain the types, and then finally see what have you done to change and help those kids. Give us specific examples. Maybe you can say, right now I'm also a speaker and I go to different schools or something like that. Give more specific examples. And I'm very thankful for that speech, and I want to hear a longer speech and learn more about that. And like you said, you have your badge of honor, yes. And that was, and like you said, we need to be aware of what's going on out there, and let's help. Like you said, please, let's help those children out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to apologize because my timing was probably not the best this evening, having to wear many hats, and timing is always a bit of a challenge for me to begin with, but also having to monitor everything else. So Christine, I'm not sure how close my timing was. I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be timing her. I did some quick math and I threw up some times there. And Claudia, I was a little slow on giving you the red, but
You have some number, any number to give?
Any number. Well, I figured that you started a little bit after the turn of the hour at 7. And so I would say you were maybe 20 seconds over after the time that I gave you the red. But
I'm
when
only
you
asking because I couldn't see your timer. All I could see was my paper. So I couldn't see the gallery view or anything. I was looking just directly at a piece of paper. So
a piece of paper? I'm sorry.
Yes, my screen.
Oh, I see. You were reading your script.
Instead of this, I was
Yeah.
reading just the screen, so I couldn't
Okay.
see you.
Okay.
And that's why I needed the time. But
Okay,
you
so
think it
when
was
you
like
go
over 7:30, over 7:30?
yes, it was over 7:30, even
Okay,
from the
that's
time that I started recording. So when you
That's
look
what
at
I needed to
the
know.
evaluation, not the evaluation, when you look at the recording, go ahead and time it and see how it is.
That'll be perfect, thanks. Because this is for some other time, and I'd love to know the time now.
Yes,
so I know
yes.
what
Well, you
to
should be able to find
get
it.
rid
Sorry
of.
about that. As I said, I really forgot about
okay.
timing until halfway through your speech.
It's like,
I'm
oh
like,
yeah, I'm
I
supposed
mean,
to do something
oh my
here,
God, I'm
right?
supposed to do this, right? Sorry about that.
That's okay. That helps. That helps
Yeah.
what you said.
And Deb, were you able to see the timing? Okay, so was that because you were also reading your speech? You're muted, Deb.
I wasn't paying attention to timing. I thought that I was supposed to be given the time by the timer.
I had the colors behind my picture.
But
so wait.
Did you write them down, or what were they? I wasn't paying attention. I was concentrating on my speech.
Right. Well, for example, this, you see that?
Yeah, I saw colors, but what does that mean?
Oh, you don't know what the colors mean? Green is.
Do you have the time of my speech?
I think you were somewhere around 13 minutes.
What?
13 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I did give the time at the correct time, and it's just like traffic lights. Green is go, yellow is slow down, and red is stop.
Yeah, I do know that. I just wanted to know the time of my speech, and it sounds like I went quite over. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to check in with you and see, what that was going on. Okay. So now, Claudia, I'm to give you an evaluation of your speech. And I can't spotlight, so I don't know whether I'm spotlighted or not. But Claudia, I thought you did an excellent job of giving a speech evaluation. You started out by saying what you really appreciated about the speech. You talked about what was how Deb really connected to you and the ways in which she did that, and that she told her story and that really connected with you. And then you mentioned that she had talked about 4 types of sex trafficking. And at this point, I might have asked her myself, why do we need to know that? How is that important to us? That would be a question that I would be interested in. You did say organization. I really liked that point in terms of a stretch goal, that it's telling the story up front and then bringing in the types. But again, there, what I would suggest is why do we need to know the types? How does that inform us? Does it make a difference what the type is in terms of whether or not we can stop it? Are some easier to stop than others? And since that's the main theme for Deb, is how can we stop this? How can we stand up and do something? That would be something that I would be looking for in that speech. And in the, you also talked in your speech about how to change things. And I thought that was a really, really great point, that you mentioned how to change, how she might talk about how can we change a situation? What can we do? You've gotten us all riled up. Now what do we do? So that was a really, really great point. And then you ended very correctly, or the way in which they like evaluations, with a summary of the good and a mention of what her changes might be. And the only thing else I could say is that if you're actually going to be competing in a speech evaluation, you're going to want to stand up and you're going to want to show more of your body. But you were very sympathetic, you were very understanding, and you made really great points that would help to improve Deb's speech. So excellent job.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. Okay, so now we can do table topics if you would like. Yes?
You'd be giving me an evaluation too?
I hadn't.
Oh.
She was specifically asked for an evaluation. But Maureen, you're an awesome evaluator. You did great. And let's see, what can yes, you said you made great points and you stayed on time, and I mean, you got a lot out of that speech. In fact, I think around the time that she was talking about the broken foot was when I suddenly realized that I needed to be timing. So I got a little distracted there. So I felt like, Maureen, I got a sense of what that speech was about all over again. And it was really great the way that you did that.
Thank you.
And I like the way that you brought in the the body language, which is, it's more difficult to do that in these tiny little screens. So really recognizing how what we want to do is focus on our facial expression much more than when we're in person. I think it was, somebody said this, maybe it was Cynthia, said that in the movies, if you look at the close-ups, and it's very different than theater, that all of it is expressed in the face. So we don't necessarily have to go and stand up and do the whole movement. Although, boy, did everybody see the international speech competition? Did you see the winner? Did you see how he came up right into the screen, really close to the edge? I was totally blown away by that. He really used his stage. But another skill that we want to acquire is the skill of maybe just sitting and using our facial expression. And Deb, you were excellent at that. You were really, really good at conveying your emotions and your frustration and your displeasure at your journey, and yet also your power. And Christine, oh my gosh, your analogies, the plant, just the vivid description of how that was to burst forth. And the description of the eagle was just amazing, going into the cave. And I think that there probably wasn't anybody in the room who didn't understand that we were supposed to connect with that experience. It was very, very powerful. Okay, so Maureen, really good job. Christine, excellent. Really, I can't believe that that was just I wasn't practiced at all. It was a brilliant speech, really good. And Deborah, very, very brave and powerful. And I really want to see more of your doing that speech. And the main thing that I would see as your stretch goal is reining it in, or as Claudia says, do it in a longer speech. But think about the structure and how it brings the person from one place to another place.
Okay.
Can I offer some appreciation for Maureen for just a sec?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciated the specificity of what I could do for next time. And your sense of like, I've had enough now, or a little bit of overwhelm, or however, you said it so well. And I had that feeling about my presentation too. And I was told that specificity brings authenticity. So when you're specific, that means, oh, this is really important. And you were very specific. And I've written it down: connection and breath and overwhelm and what happened during COVID. These are just little tightening things, but they mean a whole lot for where I want to go with this presentation. And it will be told a few more times. And I can't upgrade unless I hear from folks like you. And you did a really great job. And if this is your first time doing this, then holy moly, you ought to be in the competition with Claudia.
No, thank you. I appreciate
Seriously, you were terrific.
So Maureen, you just got the best speech evaluation of a speech evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
When you get the person who you gave the evaluation to come back and say thank you, that's when you know that you have done the best job.
BT, big thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. I
Do it again.
Appreciate it.
You did a good job. I'd hire you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Working with Cynthia Stott every week, not about evaluations, but working with Cynthia Stott every week is having an impact on me. So,
yeah, well, tell her you got an A+ from Christine.
All right, that's great. So let me just check the schedule. I think we're supposed to go back at, what am I looking at? I think we may be supposed to go back soon, but let me just make sure. Or we can see if we can do table topics. What are these other things? Okay, so this says 9:31. We could do table topics, return by 7:45. So that's a minute from now. So anybody else want to, I think we don't have time for table topics, but I think we really utilize this time very well. Any questions or any other comments that anybody would like to make?
Michelle, I want to thank you for wearing so many hats.
Yeah,
and doing such an amazing job at any hat you put.
Thank you.
And Claudia, your evaluation inspired me. I watched you and I felt like, wow, that's the way you give an evaluation.
I was shaking.
And Deb, I really appreciated your authenticity and your boldness and your courageous stand to go out there and speak the truth. Thank you.
Deb, you mentioned that you're an author. Do you write a book or anything you want to share?
I've co-authored a book called Stand in Your Power with Sima Jerry, and I talked about my experience as being an identical twin. And I have twins, and we have twins everywhere in my family. So experience about always looking for your best friend, because your best friend is your twin. But your best friend is yourself. So, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that, Deb, is another powerful story.
Yes.
Really excellent. Okay, I think we need to go back now.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the
Thank you
breakout.
all.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we will have that posted for you.